All right, well, like I said, it is good to be together. You can't believe this resurrection stuff on your own. You need other people to believe it with you. As I've heard it described, it is just too good to be true. Right? And in those words of it's too good to be true, you kind of get like a little nervous laugh, right? Like, it's too good to be true. I don't know, Jesus rose, right? And so we say, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia. Some nervous laughter. Some nervous laughter compared to where we've been in the last 6 weeks. If you've been hanging around, you've known that we've kind of meditated on the evil that's within and the evil that's all around us. But the truth is, you didn't have to be with us in the last 6 weeks, because my guess is, in the last 2 years, life has kicked you in the teeth. Right? Something has happened, and we know that evil is around us. So whether you were here or you're here for the first time, we know that there is evil around us. But today, I want to invite you into a new way of being. A new way of being. Can we pull up from Jürgen Moltmann? I'll read this for us. It says, "Since the earliest times, Easter hymns have celebrated the victory of life by laughing at death, by mocking at hell, and by making the lords of this world absurd. We celebrate the victory of life by laughing at death." Now, I'm not one who can manufacture emotions very easily. I'm not one who can just kind of on a dime switch from sad. In fact, sad is probably my default mode. But know today, when you hear a story about a Jesus who is dead and now alive again, it makes you a little nervous, and maybe you have to laugh. Because it is just too good to be true. But you hold that story of Jesus' resurrection in tension with the way our lives go. From Easter to Easter, I don't know about you, but you collect the names of those who have died. You collect griefs together. And you come into this day carrying those names and that grief. And I don't mind you being right exactly there, because that is the perfect entry point for the story of the resurrection. Let me start at the beginning of chapter 24. There were some women who were ready to prepare, actually, Jesus' body after he had died and laid in the tomb. And it says, as the women came to the tomb, they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went into the tomb, they did not find the body of Jesus dead in the tomb. It was empty. While they were perplexed about this, the nervous laughter hits. What happened? Did they steal his body? What's going on here? While they were perplexed, 2 men stood by them in dazzling apparel. They were frightened, bowed their faces to the ground, and the men said to the woman, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen. Don't you remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified on the 3rd day and rise?" And they remembered his words. You know when that remembering hits you? You're like, how did I not know all along? He'd been with us. We loved him, but more importantly, he loved us. And that's where the real pain is, right? When you lose someone who loved you so dearly. And they remembered. Maybe there's something more going on, and Jesus had been saying it all along. It seems to me that Jesus is trying to tell us something. Maybe he's even giving us an opportunity to laugh. And I want to be culturally sensitive, but Luke, the writer, makes a point here that actually is a little bit of a joke that God plays on us. You look how the story continues. It says, returning from the tomb, that is the woman, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary, the mother of James, and the other woman with them, who told these things to the apostles. But these words seemed to the disciples an idle tale, and they did not believe. So two levels, it's an idle tale. I'm going to just say it. Women were not to be trusted at this time. They were second-class citizens, and yet Jesus chooses to proclaim this resurrection through them. There is a great mercy in this story to hear this. But it says when the disciples heard, whether it was because the woman told them or because dead bodies don't live again, it was an idle tale. Are you joking? Are you kidding us? We saw him die, and now you're telling us that he is alive. I'd imagine there's a nervous laughter that comes over the group. I had a friend, Mike, who was new to the church, and we do confession absolution as we did earlier, and he had just become new to our tradition. And as we were speaking our words of confession, right, like forgive me my sins, those kinds of things, the pastor then gets up and says, yeah, you're forgiven. And he uses other words, but he said, you are forgiven by Jesus Christ. And my friend, who had been new to the church, he does this, and the whole church heard it. They heard a nervous laugh, and Mike was embarrassed, and we all kind of let it slide that day, but he and I had talked during the week, and he said, I don't think you understand that that's not how forgiveness works. It doesn't just happen. It costs you something. Good news, Mike, and good news for you. The cost was not paid by you. The cost for this forgiveness that comes so easy will be paid by Jesus Christ himself, the one who would die, be crucified, but rise again because Christ is risen. It's that easy. That's how the forgiveness works. But you know, the jokes, they keep on coming. God seems to have a sense of laughter for us. And it says that after the disciples had heard this news, they thought it was an idle tale. They checked it out for themselves, but then it goes to a new scene. And Jesus appears to two men who are walking home from this party week that was in Jerusalem. And it says Jesus comes to them, but he's kind of disguised. They can't tell who exactly it is. And so it actually, Jesus says, as he's walking with the two men, and they don't recognize him, what is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk? And the two men stood still, they stopped walking, and they looked sad. Then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened here in these days? And Jesus, the one who was dead but is now alive, says, what things? What things are you talking about? Well, it says they don't recognize him, but Jesus explains why this man had to die. And then the men invite Jesus in for a meal, and they don't recognize him until Jesus breaks bread. He shares the meal, and then Jesus vanishes. And the men continue their nervous laughter. Why did we not know? Our hearts burned. What things? This Jesus is alive. I think that God laughs. But I also think that laughter is an entry point into hearing the gospel. Jesus, it actually says, well, this is in the Psalm, Psalm 2. It's a psalm that says that there's evil powers coming all against God, but God has a response. How does God confront evil? It says that he who sits in the heavens laughs. He holds them in derision. Oh, your evil power games? That's cute. He laughs at those who would use power for evil. He sits in heaven and he laughs. In some sense, I want to take seriously the evil you've experienced. The fact is, we've acknowledged evil. We've talked about Jesus confronting it. He has died and he has risen. But the truth is you might be saying, my life won't change. The evil continues. I love deathbeds. I love being with people when one of their loved ones is about to die. Because it never fails that there will come some point in the process between the death and the funeral that the family will be gathered and there will be some entry point of laughter. I can guarantee it every time. And my job as the pastor is kind of to hang out and wait for someone to break the tension so that I can step in and speak these wild words that Jesus is dead but now alive, and so will this body. There was one such instance when I was living on the East Coast, and I had visited this woman. And in her later years, she took an obsession to buying bear paraphernalia. Not like Chicago bears, just bears. Like stuffed bears, bear pillows. She wore bear sweatshirts. When I would visit to give her communion, she would have like bears on QVC somehow. She was ordering. I would show up to the house and there would be boxes that I would carry in with me, and they would be full of bear stuff. I'm just talking like the animal bear, not a real bears, fake bears, right? Well, I found out as we were at this deathbed that I was one of the few people, maybe one of three, who knew about this bear obsession. And so as the woman breathes her last, and we're with her, one of the people who had known about this bear situation mumbles to me and says, "What do we do about the bears?" And then all of a sudden, the message about the bears started to spread to the rest of the people in the room, the extended family, and someone's like, what bears? What's going on with this? And the guy said, do we have like a museum? Do we throw them away? What do we do with all these bears? And somehow, as this news about her bear obsession came to everyone, they started to laugh in the midst of death. I don't know what weird obsessions I'm going to discover on your deathbed, but I can't wait. Because somehow, laughter is the entry point for us to hear the gospel anew. The tension breaks in the room, and I say, all right, everybody, we're praying. Hands on the body. I say that this body one day will rise again, and I can tell there's some nervous laughter in the room. And I say, we're going to sing, I Know That My Redeemer Lives, and there's some nieces in the corner who are like, we don't do this Jesus stuff. I don't even know this hymn. And I say, you know the first 6 words, and that's enough. And so we sing in the face of death. We laugh in the face of death. We mock Satan. We sing these hymns because it is true. This laughter is the entry point to believing a story that can so often be too good to be true. So tomorrow, you go to your place of work, and I'm trying to think where your mind is. If this story is too good to be true, if we're really going to confess that this Jesus who has died is alive again, I have to think that maybe there's some accusations coming your way, maybe even some laughter. Are you as a Christian, are you naive about how the world actually is? Are you foolish to believe this stuff? Oh, that's Nathan, that's kind of quaint that he believes in this Jesus who's alive. Yeah, I know, the resurrection, it's just like a moral therapy for people who need it. You know what? Everything they say would be true if Jesus were dead. but he's not. This Jesus is alive. There's no naivety in your heart. There's no foolishness. We know that while some will call it foolish, we know that it is life for us. We know that we too, on our deathbeds, will know that there will be a resurrection of all things to come. We will have new life, and we will be found in Jesus. It's good news. It's worth thinking about this week. It's worth maybe even chuckling to yourself at your desk. Well, here at Reliant, we do something after worship that when I first encountered it, I thought it was a little bit goofy at Easter worship. But we're actually going to do a toast with champagne. We're going to do a toast to the resurrection. And I think that it is just goofy. I'm like, Jeff, this is the guy who started this whole tradition. Why are we going to do this? It's kind of funny. And he goes, if we are going to toast to anything, it is going to be to a Jesus who overcomes death and lives again. And so we'll say this now, but we'll say it again at the toast. Would you read with me the words we have to laugh at death? Say it with me. Death is swallowed up in victory. Oh, death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting? Because Christ is risen. We'll say it because Christ is risen.
Hallelujah.